Earlier today, Democrats on the Senate Finance Committee organized a hearing titled Chaos and Control: How Trump Criminalized Women's Health Care.
Moms losing their ability to bear future children or dying because they were denied the emergency medical care that they needed.
Now, that was Senator Ron Wyden of Oregon opening. He's the chairman of the committee, and he opened the hearing. Part of that clip got cut off. This is the first time that there has actually been a hearing in the Senate, in this committee, in which the name of a former president was the subject of the hearing. Chaos and Control: How Trump Criminalized Women's Health Care. This political stunt mainly allowed Democrats on the committee to continue their years-long meltdown over the Dobbs decision that overturned Roe v. Wade. But it also revealed how the left's messaging on abortion has been harmful to mothers. Now, there are, again, those that are saying this is a states issue. Many Republicans saying we're just going to leave it to the states. We heard at the top of the program Kamala Harris today saying they want to codify Roe into law at the federal level. That would mean most pro-life laws across the country, doesn't matter what state you're in, would be eliminated. Parental notification, informed consent, all of that gone if Democrats are successful in pushing through a codification of Roe v. Wade. We're going to be joined here in just a moment by Senator Ron Johnson from Wisconsin, but I want to go first to Travis Weber, Vice President of Policy and Government Affairs here at the Family Research Council. Travis, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Tony.
So the Republicans, many, not all, are saying this is a states issue. That clearly is not what Democrats are saying.
Yeah, I mean, Tony, you see today they're going full bore with aggressively pushing the issue, lying about it, and pushing exaggerated, misleading information about what's happening. They're not proclaiming the truth objectively. You know, as Tony, you referenced the passage where King Solomon was presented with a situation with two women disputing over the baby. It showed wisdom, and through that situation, Solomon was granted by God the wisdom to draw out the truth for all to see publicly. So as believers now, we need to perceive what's happening and approach things in this way and observe that what we see the Senate Democrats doing today and others on this issue is obfuscating, confusing, obscuring the truth. They're not proclaiming the truth. They're hiding the truth. They are lying about what's happening. You see this happening in the tragic Georgia situation, as well as the hearing today in a number of ways, in addition to trying to kind of stick the issue onto Donald Trump's campaign in some way and misinforming the public about what is actually happening to these unborn, vulnerable children who need our protection. And Lord, and Tony, we can just ask the Lord for the truth to be uncorked and exposed, and for all to see the revelation of what is actually happening in this horror, the horror of what's happening in this
right.
issue.
And that is something we should be praying about, that the truth would come forth and people would see it, that it would be exposed. Now we're waiting on Senator Johnson to come back from a hearing, so I may switch over to him very quickly. But this is one of the elements of what I call the unholy trinity. You've got the LGBTQ agenda, and of course climate. We were talking earlier with Andy Harris how the U.S. Commission on International Religious Freedom is being infiltrated. There's an attempt to infiltrate that religious freedom entity created by Congress with the LGBT priorities.
Yeah, Tony, you guys did a great job overviewing that the issue there, and this is one instance. The report language you referenced, just coming over from the Senate, is one instance in which some are attempting to subvert and hollow out and totally gut the mission and mandate of USCIRF. Instead of protecting religious freedom, be monitoring religiously driven laws and policies to suppress them, suppress religious believers' voices. This is happening in the context of LGBT and in the context of abortion. And Tony, it's happening on the global stage. We see the Trinity you referenced being pushed globally by global powers, the World Health Organization, the UN, which is meeting right now in New York, and those aligned with them. Nations like the current under the Biden administration in the United States, sadly, pushing policies opposed to God's principles in negotiations, discussions, and policy consultations with other countries, and directly and in these global fora like the UN, the World Health Organization, where we were there and monitoring that in Geneva this past May. And so this is something believers need to observe, discern, and pray about, and devise strategies the Lord gives us to navigate these things, both domestically and abroad.
These, just like I actually referenced the language in the appropriations, but it's very subtle. I mean, it's not, they're doing it very subtly it's kind of like the nose of the camel under the tent. And this is, your team, the government affairs team, tracking this. This is, not to toot the horn of the Family Research Council, but entities like ours that are actually looking for these things where there is this collision between truth, biblical truth, and the agenda of the left. We're exposing it before it takes root.
Right, and this is a rather obscure one because it's not in the clean reauthorization bill as we discussed. It's in report language, which is attached onto a Senate appropriations bill that even, many who track these issues are not aware of how that might be negatively affecting USCIRF, as we've discussed. And as you noted, if USCIRF is poisoned by things like this, we have to ask whether it's worth continuing in light of whether it's complying with its original mandate of protecting religious freedom. Because if it's not going to do that, then Christians and those observing whether the policy is a good one will have to reevaluate. And so we have to be watching what's happening in Washington here in D.C., with Congress, with the federal, the executive branch, and all the rulemaking in the agencies, and helping believers see what's happening, allowing them to have a voice in it, and calling them to action, and calling them to pray and take their stand, position themselves on these things, Tony, with regard to how the church should be positioning itself as we hear from the Lord in the United States today.
This, again, an illustration, it's a small one, but I think significant when you look at this is one of just two entities that is commissioned to look at religious freedom around the globe and promote that fundamental human right, that these can be turned with very little understanding. Even those in the process don't see this. And just through engagement, if for instance, again, the Family Research Council or another group were not here, these things, our government would be so much worse. So this is how, believers, as you said, need to be engaged. We need to be in the process. We need to have members of Congress that will respond. We were able to have conversations all the way to the top of the leadership on this, raising the awareness. And so it requires us to get off the sofa and be involved to varying degrees. And this is the same principle is true at a school board meeting, because oftentimes you'll see you'll see policy that will be put in that may appear to be innocuous, but in fact it is a Trojan horse. And so you have to be involved. You have to be engaged.
No, that's right, Tony. And people may think, well, there's so much happening, I'm kind of overwhelmed. Well, we want to be helpful to the church around America to help them understand digestibly what is happening and what they can do about it. And so, as you know, there's an opportunity to engage. What we'll do is we'll track what's happening and then let constituents know through grassroots alerts. They can contact Congress, make their voice heard, contact the administration. Tony, when it's important that people know when we do that, it's selectively chosen at the right time, at the right moment, on the right issue. So it's not random. We're doing that because their voice really does matter. And we're told this by people we work with, it matters that Congress hears from people around America on these key issues. Because if we don't make our voices heard on protection of life and family, other issues are going to drown those out. And the congressman will just think, well, did anyone really care about that? Because we're not hearing from that many people. So every single person who clicks send, makes a call to their member of Congress office to say, even to say, look, we support that bill. Very simple. We support that issue. Thank you for engaging on this, supporting that bill. It really matters whether to help them take the right stand on a vote or just thank them for taking the right stand. The thank you really goes a long way because it lets them know we're following up in addition to helping remind them we want them to take the right stand when it's a tough vote.